My name is Eric Walker. I'm a Boston-based cinematographer, and I partnered with Adorama to shoot this coffee commercial. I shot on the Canon C70 and the NiSi Athena Primes. The C70 is a camera I've owned for years, and I love it because you can strip it down and fit it in tight spaces with nothing but a lens attached. But then with the right accessories, you can rig it up to slot into a lot of professional production environments. We shot in 4K, RAW LT, and for maximum dynamic range, C-Log2. The NiSi Athenas are a set of 5 prime lenses. They're sold in a variety of mounts. We had the PL set, so we used a PL to RF adapter to mount them on the Canon C70. It's a real nice focal range from 14 to 85, which, because we're shooting on the C70, which is a Super 35 camera, was really nice for me to have that 14, because there are certain situations where if you're shooting a Super 35, a 24 or 25 millimeter lens just might not be wide enough, like if you're throwing the camera in a freezer. So having that ultra wide option was awesome. And although we're shooting on a Super 35 camera, these lenses do have full frame coverage. So if you were to pair them with a full frame camera, you could get really, really wide on that 14. These lenses are incredibly compact and have 80 millimeter threads. So we did not have to rent a matte box, and instead we're able to just use my screw-on filters, which included a circular polarizer to minimize reflections on our glassware, and screw-on diopters to get a really close minimum focus for some macro stuff. So before I get too far into the behind the scenes, let's watch the 30-second spot that we made.
Incredibly delicious, impossibly convenient. Your favorite specialty coffee drinks, ready in seconds. A new day has arrived on Earth for coffee.
So not counting talent or our BTS man, Cade, we had a 5-person crew for this production. The Spec was directed by Brett, gaffed by Maddie, who's actually a cinematographer, but she does me a solid and works as a gaffer with me from time to time. Haley was our grip. And lastly, Kate was art department. She's primarily a director, but everything she directs is so well curated that I really wanted her to do props and wardrobe because she has such great taste. So this ad is for my personal favorite coffee brand, but because it's a Spec and Adorama did not want us to show the actual brand without their permission, we actually filmed 2 versions of every shot that included any packaging. One with the real branding and one with some fake branding that our director Brett designed, which you will be seeing in this video, the fictional Kuiper coffee. If you're interested in the real coffee brand, check out my YouTube channel, because I'm pretty sure I'm going to make an accompanying behind the scenes video in addition to this one over there sometime soon, where I will feature the shots that we shot of the actual product. Our location came from Peerspace, which, if you're unfamiliar, is basically Airbnb for filming locations. It's a fantastic resource. What I specifically wanted, besides the kitchen being beautiful, was to have the kitchen open up to the rest of the house, so that we didn't always have to shoot into the cabinets. We could swing around and get a lot of depth behind our characters. We also needed some good windows that we could light through, and an aesthetically pleasing backyard. If instead of that yard, we had a white house right out those windows, it would have just been a super bright hotspot. The fact that we get a lot of colors and textures from that greenery in their yard was a huge selling point for me. We knew we wanted the ad to feel like a bright sunny morning, so we were going to be lighting from outside. And because of that, I asked Adorama if they could send me some really bright lights, and they delivered with 3 Godox fixtures, a 1200 watt bicolor light, and 2 600 watt bicolor lights. We also had a Fresnel attachment for the 1200 and a spotlight attachment for one of the 600s. I knew I wanted that opening scene to be loaded with contrast and a mixture of hard and soft light. So once I found out which lights we had at our disposal, I created this really basic diagram so the crew could hit the ground running. Going into the shoot, my original plan was to shoot the 1200 watt light through the kitchen window, creating a shaft of hard light on the cabinets, to avoid the background just being flat white. And then we would key our subjects with one of the 600 watt lights going through a layer of magic cloth, which is a very thick diffusion. We eventually deviated from my plan to have that 1200 watt light outside for our first shot, because it turned out to be a little bit trickier than I anticipated to get a diagonal hard shaft of light with the 1200 and flags alone. Mostly because it was hard to avoid seeing the flags outside the windows. So our gaffer Maddie suggested using the 600 watt light instead of the 1200 watt light because it has a bones mount, which means that we were able to use that spotlight attachment. And by putting the 600 watt light outside with the spotlight attachment, we were so easily able to dial in exactly where we wanted the light and exactly how hard we wanted that light to be focused. It's so extremely easy to shape light with a spotlight attachment. I really can't emphasize how much I enjoy using this modifier. And it turns out that the 1200 watt light we originally had set up was only at 50% power. So we didn't have to sacrifice any output by switching out the 1200 for the 600. This was my first experience with Godox LEDs, and they worked great for us. Haley and Maddie did all the heavy lifting while I was mostly at the camera, but I did at one point set up one of the 600s myself. Let's see. Is this intuitive enough where I can just figure it out after never touching this light before? There you go. All right. I exposed using the Canon C70's built-in false color, which is one of the tools that I love most about this camera. In the C70's false color, pink represents perfectly exposed Caucasian skin tones, and green is middle gray. I typically expose darker skin tones, either one stop over middle gray, at middle gray, or one stop under, depending on the talent. Honestly, it's really fun right now to talk about the exposure and the camera and the lighting, but on the day, nearly all of our conversations were about either the props or the schedule. For a video like this, what you choose to shoot when, to minimize lighting changes, and to make sure that all the props that need to be prepped are prepped on time in the right order is critical. And there was no way that we would be able to get through this entire shoot in a single day if we wanted to shoot chronologically. Which are gonna be match cuts, so it's just one setup of light. Which might be this setup of light. Like, Matt, you think we should keep this?
I think we double it up.
Yeah. So for this two shot of them each drinking their separate coffees, we are no longer facing into the kitchen, we're now facing into the living room. So we were no longer seeing that shaft of hard light hitting the cabinets. So we decided to repurpose that 600 watt light with the spotlight attachment inside and use it as a hair light to help make our characters pop a little bit more from the background. And I think it feels natural enough considering we have all of these windows behind them to motivate that light. We used a few different frame rates on this shoot. The first half was all shot in 24, and then for the macro stuff, we went to slow motion. And then for our very last shot of the day, for some beans falling, I decided that I wanted it even slower. So I took the C70 out of RAW and changed it to 422 10-bit. Still amazing quality, just not quite as much flexibility as RAW. But by going into 422 10-bit, I was able to change the camera to 120 frames per second.
Incredibly delicious. Impossibly convenient. Your favorite specialty coffee drinks, ready in seconds. A new day has arrived on Earth for coffee.
Check out the link in the description if you want to see my YouTube channel or learn more about any of the products featured in this video.